Everyone. Well, we're going to officially kick off our March NGHWA meeting. So welcome. Thank you all for being here today. I'm excited to hear from our guest speaker. But before we do that, I want to do a few quick introductions. So my name is Jody Solberg. I'm the president of NGHWA, and I am uh, excited to, in a moment, introduce Danny, who's our secretary, one of our other board members here, and then Barb in the back is our leadership chair as well. And I would like for all of us to be able to have a couple minutes to just share about who we are and what we do. Um, I can start since I'm already talking up here. I've been a hypnotherapist since 2001. My background is social and clinical psychology. And I have always specialized in things like trauma and anxiety and working with individuals as well as families. So do things like teach hypnobirthing and facilitate prenatal bonding, as well as something called sleep talk for parents to learn how to speak into their children's subconscious minds. And all of us, right, can really use skills for emotional and nervous system regulation, for having more secure attachments, and to be able to have those positive behaviors and results. So that's what I do. I work virtually. I'm up in Skagit County, so I also teach classes in Anacortes and Mount Vernon. So that's a little bit about me. And then Danny, do you want to share about your practice and what you do?
Sure. So I have been a hypnotist since 2014, and I work online and in person at Snohomish. I have a program called the Soul Power Experience, where we recognize our divinity and hear from our soul, something that's more true than what we believed before, past, present, and future. I'm also in Mary Leela Bay's past life regression training, so I'm super excited about that.
Recently retired hypnotherapist Everett Washington.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm James.
He's going to speak at our meeting soon.
Yes, Deborah, my specialty is anything to do with birthing and pregnancy and prenatal bonding, connecting mother and baby while the baby is growing in the womb.
I'm Leah Clary. I'm actually in training to become a licensed hypnotherapist. I'm in the same class as doing. It's a lot of fun. You should come.
Mentors for things like hypnobirthing and prenatal bonding. So it's beautiful to learn from one another. And today we are going to have an opportunity to learn from another one of our members. But if you would like to become a member, I want to talk about that first for anyone who's watching this or here in the room who's not yet a member of NGHWA. It's a great community where you get more visibility when you are a member of our organization. You're able to get things like discounts on our conference in January that we just had a couple months ago, as well as on our registry on our website. So get some great SEO and some visibility there, as well as some things like being able to join us virtually as well, which is wonderful. And it really is such a great space to be able to connect because so many of us are solopreneurs. So we're individuals, we're on our own. And so to be able to connect, to be able to further our understanding and education around hypnosis is phenomenal. We meet every month, second Saturday of each month. January, like I said, we have our World Hypnotism Day conference, and in December we like to have a little holiday gathering for our meeting. And then in June, we're going to be partnering with the Pacific Northwest Hypnosis Conference, which is going to be down in Tukwila, Washington, down at South Center this year. And so make sure to check that out as well, and we'll see you there. So I'm going to introduce our speaker for today so that we can learn from one of our experts here in the room. Estee Taschereau is going to be speaking on intuitive hypnosis, a path to inner balance. And Estee is the founder of Safe Haven Hypnosis. And I'm just looking forward to hearing more about what you do and what you want to share with us today, Estee. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Hey, everybody.
Uh, I had an interesting time figuring out what is it that I want to speak about. And one thing that I just have never gotten away from, much as I have tried to go in various other directions, but the intuitive thread stays with me, and it served me well. A little bit about me. I am from the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Seattle, not too far from here, down in the Shoreline, Shorecrest District, somewhere around there. I went to junior high there. I am a Kellogg cornflake. So I went to Kellogg Junior High and Shoreline High School, and we're here in that territory right now. Isn't that wonderful? And isn't it amazing how the things that we've experienced in the past come back to us in some form or another? We get reminders, we get clues, we are able to process and update these things that we've experienced in the past. Um, I continued on with my learning experience, went to college here, went to Cornish School of Allied Arts for a year, and that was a wonderful creative experience. And then I got this idea, Dad, I want to move to LA. He had no argument. So he packed up the car, took me down there, left the car with me so I could get around, made sure I had a place to stay, made sure everything was okay for me. And that was a big change in my life, being on my own in this big city. And I was able to pursue a little further my interest in music. But during that time, I met a lot of very fascinating people. And I started to learn about things like, anybody ever hear of something called EST? Yeah, it's been around for a very long time. That was my first big event where I got to learn about things that made sense to me. I got to experience thinking outside of the box, outside of the way that I was taught in all those years. And I continued on, returned back to the Seattle area a few years later, and began to study intuition. And I became a clairvoyant reader. Very intensive program, very structured, and from that I obtained my certification as a minister. And I continued on to do spiritual counseling through intuitive functions, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, all of these different things that are described as metaphysical. Okay. And here's the thing though, over the years, I have come to this conclusion. Why do we have things like intuition? Why? What is it for? How does that serve us? Why has it come up so many times in my life and been such a big deal? One of my first stories of intuition when I was living down in LA is one of my coworkers came up to me, somebody I hadn't formally met yet, but I recognized them. And she came up to me one day and she said, "Could you loan me $1? I'm short on my bus fare." And I said, "I've got a car. How about if I just drive you?" So I took her to where she lives, probably about a half-hour drive, plus some down in LA, down in Watts. I remembered a friend of mine said, "Oh, you're going to move to LA? Just don't go to Watts." So here I am down there in this area, down in Watts, very cultural based environment there. And she said, I dropped her off at home. She said, "Come on in." So, sure, yeah. And we talked and talked and talked, and we just had the best time. She says, "I have an idea. let's go to my sister's. And I'm like, okay. And so we get in the car and we start driving. And of course, we're having such a great time talking. We just continued back and forth, discussing different things. And I said, turn right up here at the light. And she said, or left up at the light. And she says, yeah, yeah. And we kept talking and talking. Do I take a right up here at this next light? And she says, yeah. And kept driving and we're talking. And she's like looking over at me a lot. And I look over at her and I drove a little bit further and I pulled over. I failed. I had to go past that intersection and turn in the first driveway. I failed by about 200 feet. If I had turned into that driveway, what would have happened? What would have happened if I followed that pathway in the way that I perceived it? Well, next minute later, not even a minute later, out barreling out of that driveway is a little kid on a three-wheel tricycle, almost going out in the street. Couldn't see him. There was a fence along the parking area of that apartment complex. There was no way for me to physically know, but I knew. And I can't tell you how I knew, but I knew. And that was one driving force in my exploration and my experience with intuition. Now, I had many things before then as well, but nothing that stood out so profoundly as that experience. And when I look nowadays at why do we have intuition? What is that all about? The idea that's out there is that we come from a greater good, something big, that we are part of that. And they call that the I am. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Danny knows, I'm sure this is Danny's area of expertise as well. You can preach it, yeah. All right. So we have the I am. And the idea with the I am is that we are a part of this, whatever it is, can be, whatever it is called. But the idea is that we are all a part of the same thing. And yet here we come and we step into the body and we go, what just happened? And we have identity, we have separation. I look at intuition as a way for us to bridge between the, I'll even look at my notes here, because I like the way I phrased it. We bridge between the collective oneness and the separated oneness that we experience being in the body, coming here and having questions and experiencing different things. And for every single one of us, no one has exactly the same experience. We all experience things in our own independent, different way. We have things such as the experiences that we learned as we were in our early years, the things that we don't even comprehend because we're so young, and that those parts of our brain haven't developed enough to be able to understand or communicate. We have genetics that come into play, and those things that influence who we are. And genetics isn't just the physical traits that we have. We know about genetics and epigenetics.
Right.
Un-
Yeah.
Yes, we have come to that point where it's been, yes, I love science. I love science. They're always a step behind us because they see these things that we do. They see these signs that we have been flexing our muscles on for decades, probably thousands of years. And they see these things and they go, I wonder what. And they do the testing and they monitor the brain and they give us all of this wonderful information. And one of the things that they found with genetics is just because you have particular genes, it doesn't mean that's going to occur. And with epigenetics, they've found not only can those things either turn on and off or off, we can change it. We have that capability to change our genetics. And not only that, and here we're going to get a little into that intuitive, spiritual, however you want to describe it, that change can go back 7 generations. That's what science has concluded. Whether that's a stopping point, I don't know. Can also go 7 generations into the future. And that sounds a bit unusual. How can we go into the future? Well, the thing is you're standing here and the choices that you make here and now, how could they not change the future? We have that power. So intuition is about creating that bridge between this bigger picture and this all that is and the I am. I am. And as you even continue to say those words, I am, and feel it, we experience more of that sense of creation, that power that has been placed in our hands, when maybe what we would have loved to have is an instruction manual to operate this thing, but that's okay. We're learning and we're growing and we're doing all these things. Now, I continued on and I became an ordained minister. I became a clairvoyant counselor. I continued that and became a teacher with meditation, energy healing as well, and went on to become a dean at this particular church location. And I had a great time with that. And I did that for about 8 years, and then I moved on. So I wasn't in the right place. Didn't know that so much at that time, but I was not in the right place. And there's things that I had to do. And I've had a wonderful journey along the road, along this way, learning many, many different things. Learning, for example, I'm a Reiki master as well. I'm very experienced with EFT. I have developed various techniques that I teach, and I put all of these things together. Now, what I didn't mention is way back when I studied from my training in clairvoyance. That was 43 years ago, I think. And okay, that was fine. Well, lo and behold, the person that was training, person that I would be in his class, in the advanced class, and he was the instructor, the only instructor for the advanced class. He was a retired dentist. He used hypnosis with his patients very successfully. And he established a very strong reputation. And that was probably in the 60s, the 70s. He was very much a forerunner in this idea of using hypnosis for something that most people wouldn't imagine how could that possibly work, but it did. And you can't, and with all the training that we had, that was my introduction to hypnosis as well. He integrated various threads of hypnosis, very informal. I wasn't told, none of us were told, oh, gee, this is hypnosis. These things were just woven into it. And hypnosis became a part of my world at that time. My formal training in hypnosis started about maybe 6 years ago, and I continue to learn because it's such a fascinating field and there's so much to learn and so much to experience. And the most interesting part that I'm finding is the thread that I've taken is the intuitive aspect of hypnosis. So what is that? Well, intuitive is inward. It's what you experience, how you feel. It's purpose. It's direction. Just like my experience driving my friend to her sister's place, following along and receiving perhaps ideas and thoughts and indicators to go in a particular direction without knowing why, without knowing how it fits in to the bigger picture, or how it fits in with the context of where you're at right now, but following those particular pieces of experiences and the intuitive guidance that we have. In fact, I was at a conference about 20 years ago, met a wonderful hypnosis, Wendy Friesen, and she lives in Hawaii now, and met her at this conference down in Texas, and we were chit-chatting about some different things, and she said, I always show up. I'm always there. And there's one occasion where I didn't. And I had reasons why I had to cancel, but I don't cancel. I don't. And there was a major flood in the area that happened just before the conference. And I would have been there. And I said, oh, you listen to your intuition. And she just stopped, looked at me. You could see the processing going on. What does that mean? Now, we blend that with hypnosis, that wonderful ability to shift our consciousness. And intuition works in that same framework as hypnosis. Our brain waves, most of the time, the majority of people are in the beta brain. And that's a problem-solving brain. That's also the problem-making brain. Creative area? No, not really. But it is a great place for problem solving, for doing tasks, for getting things done. It's also a place where anxiety is created. Below that, if you just take a step back, we have the alpha. And the alpha still has those problem solving skills, but it's a little bit slower, a little more focused, a little more relaxed. We take a step back from that, a little bit slower. We have the theta brain. And the theta brain is the brain waves of meditation, a deep level of meditation, also a level of focus. It's also a precursor to that sleepy state. In fact, how many people have experienced or heard that comment of, I don't know, I just feel sleepy after a session. Okay? With hypnosis, we experience that because hypnosis brings us down into those theta waves. Intuition also can prosper in those particular frequencies. The way that I describe it is that busy part of our brain that is always watching out, always watching to make sure that we are safe. The prime directive, keep her safe. Make sure he doesn't get in trouble. The prime directive of safety. And that part of your brain is always on the lookout. Always. And it is always giving you directives. Go do that. Yep. Oh, don't, oh, careful. That coffee might be hot. Right? It is always giving us reminders based upon the experiences that we've had. And this is a really important thing. One of my favorite meditation techniques taught in the Big Mind meditation program. I apologize, I can't think of his name and properly pronounce it, but if you look up Big Mind meditation, you'll find it. But one of the things that I like is in his meditation, he calls forward different parts, like the big mind, the big heart. And at a certain point, he'll call that part of the brain the analytical brain, the part of the brain that keeps us safe. Go ahead and call that part of you to come forward. And first and foremost, say thank you. Thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you for doing this job. I know it's a big job and I know it's important. And I want you to keep doing it. But right now, I want you to do that job in the background. Way back there. That's right. All the way back. And as that part of you complies, notice how quiet it becomes. I've done this in a meditation online, and within a matter of only a couple of minutes, everything shifts. The entire tone changes for a group of people. And they're able to hear more of that intuitive nature, more of that voice that guides them. Protection is back there, all the way back there, the way back there. And it's still doing its job. But there's the other voices, the heart, the intuition, the guidance, purpose, what you value, what's important to you. Being able to see things from a different perspective. Does that maybe sound a little like hypnosis too? Theta waves. Now we can go deeper than that and go down into the delta waves too. And most people say, well, delta waves, no, that's deep sleep. But people can get into the delta waves, get into those frequencies in deep meditation and still be consciously considered to be awake. And havening techniques, I'm also a havening practitioner. With havening techniques, yes, you use touch. You use touch. And with that touch, now I know Barbara here. She knows this one well with the birthing. and how effective that touch is on a baby's face. I love watching a video of someone stroking a baby's face, and they look like they're concentrating, and the stroking starts, and they just get this giddy, happy, joyful expression on their face. And when the stroking stops, they go back to their inquisitive. And it's beautiful to watch that. Delta waves is still functioning in those various levels. It can be much more unconscious level. But the thing is, it's still within you. It's still happening. It's your experience. It's just on a different level of consciousness. It's still yours. Your intuition can be very, very aware of that level of consciousness as well. And in fact, intuition, it's interesting the way that we section things off, isn't it? We put hypnosis in one basket and intuition's going to go over here on this shelf. And we separate things into different brain frequencies and all of that. And that is a thing that we do as humans. We break things down into one piece at a time so that we can understand it, right? We break things down so that we can digest it and make sense of it. And just to throw a little interesting idea into this, that idea that our mind and our psyche breaks these things down, breaks down our experiences, breaks things into categories instead of just allowing that flow and that integration and that communication and that cooperation. When we break things down into those tiny little pieces, aren't we starting to marginalize things, simplify them to a point that it takes the beauty and the wonder and the miracle aspect out of those experiences? I've had conversations with somebody where I walk them through a process, I help them out, and they go, "Oh my gosh, I just feel so wonderful. And this is amazing. I don't know what to say." And they keep talking. And as they talk in that same breath, they minimalize it. They break it down. They make it small. And they lose that spark of beauty, that wonderful experience that they have. And it's always been something of interest. Always remember that particular experience. Why did that happen? Because our brain is designed to break things down into a form that we can work with and understand, and that keeps our psyche safe and keeps us within those boundaries, within that safe space that's created within our mind. What does that do to us as well? It separates us from new experiences, from growing, from improving ourselves, showing ourselves what we're really capable of doing. There was a time when I would, the idea of standing up and talking to people about these things, oh, no, it wouldn't have happened. And every single thing that we do starts somewhere, doesn't it? Yes, it starts somewhere. What's happening in those times? We step into this flow. We step into this place where we can intuitively not being that paranormal stuff of seeing things with your eyes closed and hearing voices and things that aren't there. And for me, occasionally be doing a session and I'd just start going, "Do you smoke?" And I would taste the cigarettes, even though that person wasn't even in the room with me. Could taste that cigarette smell. Those abilities are there, and definitely they're a part of it. And yes, I don't think they've really measured it yet. They just haven't found how to measure it yet. Fine. But intuition and that intuitive part being that driving force, being that guidance. So with the hypnosis, um, we have focus, we have induction going from that busy brain frequency and that problem-oriented viewpoint, and shifting those frequencies down to that point where that busy part of your mind can't function at that speed. That's the way I see it. We're stepping into a place where it can't go. It's too slow, or it's too fast up in the gamma waves, which goes above that day-to-day beta brain. That's called the genius zone. Shifting into that, it is a state of flow that you move into. It is a very creative state. And you can have a similar state to that down in the theta and the alpha. You can integrate these things in so many different ways. You can bring that into the delta with practice. One of the things that I do is I work with people with a technique called image cycling. And it sounds kind of weird, and it kind of taps in a little to my energy healing techniques, and known as CAM, complementary and alternative medicine. And with image cycling, you use a process that was created actually as a research project to see if energy healing really works. And this researcher, formal researcher, put this together and really became curious about this whole thing, put this whole project together. And they had to find a way to teach people how to do energy healing. And they chose to do it with people that had no experience whatsoever with that, even people that were skeptical of it. Well, great, sit down, we'll use you as in the project. And they worked on mice. And the question was, can we cure mice of cancer using energy healing? Well, as a part of it, they had to figure out how to distract the person, or in other words, keep this person from getting out of the way so that they're not sitting there going, is it working? Is it working? Is it done yet? Is it working? Because when we do that, it doesn't. It doesn't work. It makes it harder. So they had to come up with this way of distracting them. And they said, well, create a list of things that you'd like and go through that list over and over and over and over. And that was the technique that they used. Distract them. And just do that. Put your hands there, just follow the steps and go through and do your list and just make it go faster and faster and faster and distract them. What people found is they started getting the items on their list. Those things came to them. And they were surprised too. It's like, how could this possibly have happened? So that's turned out to be a little bit of well, actually a very big part of this idea of image cycling. It is still a very amazing technique for energy healing. Yes, they've been able to heal cancer in mice. Yes, they could take blood from one mouse, inject it into another mouse, and that mouse would be cured of their cancer. Um, many different experiments that they've done over time, and the technique also works for people as well. And it's fascinating, and I lead people through that. It's a great way as well to turn on your intuition, to get out of that busy brain, and to get into that flow state. And that is where I see that intuition is there to serve us and help us to get into that flow state. And we've all been in that flow state. Anybody here ever go to a movie? A movie theater? Yeah. Have you ever reached a point where you no longer realize that there are other people in the theater? You're so involved in that movie? Mhm. Have you ever gone out to dinner with somebody and you are so into the conversation with them? You are so interested in that person. The entire room, all those tables, all the noise, nothing bothers you. You don't even notice it because you're there in that zone, in that state of flow. So there we're talking about things that we use in hypnosis, getting into that zone, getting into that focused state. And it's also very intuitive, having that flow happening, that integration, the communication. So hypnosis and intuition work well together. So I'm going to take a look here and just see how we're doing on time. One of the things that has been of interest to me in hypnosis and NLP are the scripts, following certain patterns. And it's very important for us as we are learning anything to follow steps, to practice, to do the basics. I did that when I was 4 years old, learning that's when I started piano lessons, 4 years old, because I would sit down at the piano. My sisters would play a record. Remember 33s, 45s? They'd play a record on the record player. I'd sit down at the piano and I'd play that song. So I started piano lessons then. And I went through all the drills and all the training. We learn how to do things, but that does not mean that we are confined to be in that particular regimented way of performing hypnosis, working with hypnosis with other people. I see intuition as being a very strong part of working with clients, working with ourselves too, doing our own self-hypnosis, is to recognize that intuitive side and to integrate that into the way that we plan. Now, hypnosis is absolutely brilliant with the inductions. I love it. Totally love conversational hypnosis as well. And I love the structure and the direction that hypnosis takes. There's wonderful steps in there. But I also feel that as we bring in more recognition of the intuitive nature of people, recognize that each and every one of us is unique unto ourselves and we have our own answers. What happens for that person when we lead them in a way that recognizes that somewhere inside them, they know the answer, they know the reasons why they've taken a certain course of action. And we bring that intuition in, and it clicks. And I've heard this topic approached here and there with various hypnosis conferences that I've been through, various trainings and all of that. And I am a firm believer that the more that we recognize the power and the beauty and the incredible uniqueness, I can't even quite say the word there, it's so wonderful. The more that we recognize that that person sitting in front of us isn't just a problem that's come to us, but they're a creator. And they're a beautiful soul somewhere underneath the protections and all of those things that have happened to them that have caused them to take a part of themselves that is special and set it aside. And they may go through life day after day, year after year, not really having the knowledge and the logic and the reasoning to be able to say there's a part of me that's separate, but they feel it. They certainly feel it. And with hypnosis, as we guide them and ask them those questions that hopefully are not leading questions, how do we know these things? How can we take a particular direction that makes sense to us? It sounds wonderful and it sounds reasonable and it works. It works for us. But how can we use our hypnosis in a way that integrates the power and the ability to problem solve and heal? We look at the intuitive side. We recognize that. We recognize that there is protections that exist there, and that's all happening up in the brain. We can certainly help them to find those things that those are triggers for them and help them to disperse. We can go as far as talk about trauma. We can help them to disperse those things. I use havening for trauma resolution. I also combine hypnosis in there as well, putting those two things together. In fact, I just started my new company, or rebranding myself, Safe Haven Hypnosis, combining those two techniques together, or those two methods and processes, ways of doing things, putting those two things together to recognize that that person has aspects to them that we don't even see yet, and they don't see it. They feel it. They feel the lack of it. Anybody here ever feel a sense of lack? Yeah, I know I have. But there's it's kind of like tasting food and going, there's just something missing in this. I don't know quite what it is, but there's something missing. And as we dig down and we ask those questions of these people, we're able to help them shift into that state without the busy mind getting in the way and protecting them and telling them, oh, excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom right now. Yeah, I got to go. Oh, well, I got to check my phone. My phone's ringing. all those distractions, those things that they will do subconsciously to get them out of a place that's threatening them, threatening to disturb all of those protections that have been created to keep them from experiencing something that is potentially harmful for them, harmful for perhaps their psyche, harmful for them to move forward and take steps in a particular direction, create success. Oh, God forbid we have that kind of thing happen. Have a great life and good time, feel rewarded, feel that feeling of being in that state of bliss that comes when you are in such a state of flow. You want to put, if you wanted to put bliss somewhere on that scale of emotional frequencies, it would be right up just somewhere around joy, that intensity, that wonderful feeling. And I think everyone in this room has experienced that kind of feeling before, that feeling of bliss, that contentment, that wonderful feeling like you are moving at such a fast rate of speed. Things are amazing, and yet you feel like you're just right there in the moment. A weird sensation to have. How can you have moving a million miles a minute and being completely still all at the same time? That's that feeling of bliss. That is the feeling of flow. That is what they talk about in the Hermetics. When you reach that state where it feels like everything is moving, but everything is standing still, and it's happening at the same time. I love that state. That's why I continue to do the image cycling, because I will shift myself into that state. And I teach the people that come to my group how to do that as well. Oh, that's pretty good. Well, let's just take it a little bit further. Let's just boost it a little bit more. And they shift, and they shift, and they reach that state of bliss. And we finish the process, and they feel good. And isn't that what we're looking to do for anybody that comes to us? Without digging down into the idea of what was the problem that they came to. I don't remember now. That's often what we hear, right? I don't remember why I came here. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I don't know why that was a problem. We love to hear that. We love to see people move into that state of flow. And that's what we're talking about with intuition. It's moving into that state of flow. That is what we're here to do. And we have this wonderful playground all around us with things you can trip over, things that can happen to you, things that can happen for you. All of these different things that we get to experience, yes. And we get to experience all of these things, and we get to assess them. And a lot of that happens internally on that subconscious level. We have the experiences, and our brain codes that. It takes that information, the fragments that it has. It's never a complete picture. It takes all those fragments and assesses it, puts it into a story form, takes all the emotional energy, embeds that in there as well. All of the data. The interesting thing about these memories and what we do with them and how we experience them, an interesting thing that I discovered a short time back is that when we bring up a memory, it's never the same as the last time we brought it up. And the next time we bring that memory up, it's not the same as the last time that we brought it up. So our memories even change. They continue to change. Why do we get stuck? Why do we have these ideas that ruminate? It's a wonderful mystery. And the great thing is that we have this aspect of self that does not give up, that does not walk away, and it does not do what our nervous system does when we get into that sympathetic, reactive nervous system. And something happens, and there's some detail in those experiences that say, stop, no, don't go there. There's danger here. Something is going to happen. I don't know what it is, but I feel like something is going to happen. And this is not a good thing. That part of our brain, that reaction takes dominance over everything else because it needs to, because it's important. Our body is not as durable as we'd like to think it is, and we don't want to cause injury to ourselves. And so that voice comes up and says, stop, don't do that. And that's a really great thing when you go in the kitchen and you look at the lights up on the stove to make sure that the red light is not on, that says that burner's hot. Okay? I take my dog for a walk at the marina, and they've got this beautiful picture down on the ground, made of tile, that shows the waterways of Puget Sound. And it has a marker that shows you are here. And it's beautiful. It's this beautiful map. It's a compass and this waterway, and it's gorgeous. And I found myself walking, as I'm walking my dog, I walk along there and I walk through the map. And I'm careful to put my feet on the concrete and not on the tiles. Because I know that when it rains, those tiles get slippery. And I don't want to fall. I don't want to injure myself. I caught myself doing that on a dry day, a dry, sunny day, and I'm dancing around these tiles. Yeah. Hey, step over that one. And realized that's how my body works. That's how that brain works. It's protecting me. It's keeping me safe. Did I need that at that moment? No, not really, but it sure in heck was going to speak up because that's its job. And shh, remember, go to the back of the room. That's right. Ask that part of you to go into the back of the room quietly, do the job there. I love that big mind meditation. I use that technique all the time, and I share that with everybody. And I think it's a wonderful technique to just simply quiet the mind. And that's what we're doing with hypnosis, isn't it? We're helping people to reframe things. We're helping them to reset. We're helping them to see things from different perspectives so that they can get on with their life in steps, the intuitive side, so that they can get on with their life and create what they want, what is important for them. We're there to assist these people in doing and creating that. And I think as we bring more and more focus to that recognition that we're dealing with very, very capable spirits manifest in this body, in this place, or if we want to eliminate that spiritual side of it, that this person has a very capable brain and a very capable mind. In fact, it's said all things are mental. All things are mental. Out in the universe, mathematical formulas. We have those capabilities. Understands how to heal itself, given the right tools, given the support, given the right directives. And we can further help people in so many different ways, in more ways that we could even imagine. Imagine that as a hypnotist working with somebody, and you allow yourself to be in your own flow, which, by the way, through mirror neurons, helps them, the recipient, to shift into that state of flow too, because you are doing that and they are following that. And there's no real evidence of that. You feel it and it happens. And imagine you following your own intuition as you pick up on those subtle hints and clues and things that are happening with that person. Perhaps there is a part of you that recognizes things that are happening that don't necessarily make any sense, but you get these insights. Imagine as you become more and more open to that, bring that into the picture. Doesn't mean that you need to necessarily openly push somebody in a direction. You're there to support them and give them guidance, but they follow their own path within that. Imagine that as a hypnotist to bring in that same energy of, I am very capable spirit and I have abilities and I can perceive things that my brain does not understand, and that's okay. So imagine how that would be. And isn't it wonderful too that that person sitting across from you or sitting across from you in the video in the room? Here I am. I've got two computers here, but that person that's sitting right there, that's listening, and they're shifting because they'll hear something that makes sense for them, and it could be something totally irrelevant. And it could be something so out of context, but yet it connects and it leads them to a thought, and they suddenly go, and something in their life changes, and they're sitting there. I don't even see them there. I don't know that they're there right now. But there's those mirror neurons, and everything is energy, everything is vibration. And somehow magically, I'm given the opportunity to witness and experience that kind of shift in myself as well. And I think it's beautiful and wonderful that for us to step into a role of integration between the intuition and the hypnosis, that we're able to transcend to a multi-level healing capacity, not just for them, but for you, just like genetics. Seven lifetimes that way, lifetimes that way. Change happens in you. What is it you're going to be bringing to the plate for your next client? What's going to happen for that person that just came to you for support, and they go through this experience and they change things in their life, and their life changes. I think it's a wonderful and beautiful thing.
Any questions?
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
I had just come from my previous April work with someone, and it was over on the Olympic Peninsula. So my brain waves were kind of elevated state. Even when I got back in the car, I was really calm as a cucumber. And I came to an intersection, and the light was green. Two cars went through that intersection, and something told me to hesitate. As the car came 160 miles an hour through that intersection, they had a red light. I would have been in that spot. Yeah, it would have been evil. I finished off with them going that fast. Something told me, hesitate.
Yes.
And he almost crashed into the cars coming the other direction because he was going so fast. I don't know what happened to the guy because I went through the intersection after saying, I can't believe that I hesitated. I would have been dead.
Beautiful story. Just to paraphrase, driving, hesitating for some reason, but you, at the time, you don't think of it being hesitating. You don't think of it. You just,
In my slow reason,
yes.
and for some reason, there was I hesitated. Two cars had gone green light.
Yep.
And I had been right behind that third car. I would have been gone.
If she had not hesitated, not really having the time to process why you felt the way that you felt, or that it even means anything, but you did it and you hesitated. You caused that change. Had she not hesitated, she would have been behind this other car in front of her. She would have been directly behind it, and she would have been T-boned. And that may have been a life-changing or a life-ending experience. That's a wonderful story. I heard a story from my chiropractor. He said that this is as he's getting ready to do an adjustment, chiropractor naturopath, and he's getting ready to do an adjustment on my neck. And he said, yeah, I had this young boy in and I'm getting ready to do an adjustment for him. And I just paused for a minute and it's like, I need to check him one more time. And he found something, those magic hands of a chiropractor that feel all of those the little subtle nuances in the tightness of the neck and the configuration of the bones and all that. And he stopped and he checked this boy again. And if he hadn't, he could have seriously injured that boy because he found what he was looking for. He found what he knew was there. And he could perceive speculation on my part, but he could perceive the energy flowing in that child. He could perceive as he focused in on that part of his neck before he even touched him. He could see the flow of that energy. He could feel what was happening there. I had an experience like that. This has been something I've done on many, many occasions, but I was at a little gathering, and I tell people your intuition is subtle. It's very subtle and it's very quiet, not in my world. And I'm at this gathering and we're outside and we're chit-chatting and conversations are happening. And across the table, I hear this woman someone I know, I hear her talking about this accident that she had in the brain injury. And I look across at her and I see the flow of energy happening in her brain. And I couldn't even stop myself from just shooting out these words. Mary, why don't you just heal it? Because I could see that solution was there. The information was there. How to put it together, it doesn't matter, but you have these perceptions, and it's going to be great, as science continues to study as much as they do or as little as they do, intuition and healing, self-healing, our body is the one that heals, not the drugs that we take, not the interactions that we go through, but our body heals itself. It's perhaps given a place where it can just go and things change. That deep breath. We were talking about this earlier before the meeting started, this idea of the nervous system, how our nervous system gets revved up and it sends out this cortisol. And it's taken me a long time, decades, to realize how my body was in that sympathetic state way too much of the time, way too much. Just having that realization has been life-changing for me as I have continued over the years to catch that in action and take action. We talked about a simple technique of shifting your eyes, shifting your focus, looking, and very simple if you'd like to learn this technique or try it out. Just keep your head straight and look laterally, not up or down, ladder side by side. Look to the right and just keep looking to the right. Doesn't have to be hard, just an easy glance over to the right and just notice how you feel. You may notice at some point you take a little bit deeper breath where your shoulders might relax, where you might yawn, and relax your focus and then look to the left, keeping your head straight and look to the left. And this is a very simple technique that anybody could do at any time. I play with that when I'm in line at the grocery store. I mean, what a great way to reset myself. And then you can relax. And what that does is that it helps to reset your nervous system. You can do bilateral. Havening, it's kind of a bilateral thing because you cross your arms. You can also do snap, snap, clap, snap, snap, clap. I like to play with that a little bit more because it gets kind of boring. Same thing over and over and over. So I reverse it. Snap, snap, clap, snap, snap, clap. What that does is it helps to connect the two hemispheres of your brain. And you start to build more of those pathways between those two hemispheres. Okay. So one of them being the logical hemisphere, which
just to get somebody induced, you could be like, hey, look to the right. Just as you were doing that.
yes,
I was like, I don't know, I keep my eyes open when I do that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's short of the body and feel like, it's like, left, right, how much you pay now.
yeah.
I have a question about more of something I was thinking about. Usually when I think about intuition, I think of no filter. Generally, I think of personality types and think about people who make decisions quickly and put those decisions into place quickly. As people who have a strong, what I would call buttons. But it's usually people who act and then once you see them to see what they did and say, did I do it right? Right? So it's somebody who is a strong gut instinct. So that's how I'm thinking of it.
Yes, intuition associated with gut feeling. And it's totally true. And we all get that kind of thing. We'll get that gut feeling. Um, some, mhm.
That's called the vagal.
Yes, it is.
It's the 10th cranial nerve where you connect the brain, the heart, and the gut.
Yes.
And when all three are in line, you're making a good decision. If the gut doesn't feel right, the heart doesn't feel right, the brain doesn't feel right, you need to reevaluate.
I love that. So alignment, having those three in alignment, the gut, the heart,
In the brain.
and the brain, or the brain, or and yeah, the brain and mind associating with that is, and so yeah, if those three are not in alignment, then I would love to hear you talking about that sometime, even more, and going elaborating on that topic too. That's a beautiful, beautiful thought. Just integrating your heart into things that you do and decisions that you make. And I love the idea that what you were saying there is that lateral eye movement. Yes, that is a type of induction that you can do.
I think it's they said, "Oh, you're a hypnotist. Can you show me something?" You're like, "Yes." So
Yeah.
That's compliance. They're holding your eyes to what there's so much in there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We are, look at how powerful we are. Look at the tools that we have in our hands. Isn't that great? We can have a short conversation with somebody. We can tell them a little story and they go into that trance state because, and trance being simply focused. Yes.
I prefer focus rather than trance. Trance kind of
Agreed.
Yeah. Yes.
exactly.
Well,
To
there,
bring it full circle, I try to stay with the whole intuition.
you get,
Usually, so people who are gut instinct, they're acting and then looking behind this. What was the result of my action? Then you have people who are more preemptive, more premeditated. And, they think before they speak. They have an inner dialogue that they listen to, and they might even refine what they're going to say before they say it. That is not something, for example, that I do. I don't think before I speak. It just flows out. And then I look behind me and say, did that work or not? So I would say that I'm relatively a gut instinct, right? And we can get into face reading. There's lots of things we do to kind of determine that behavior, that personality type. Okay, so getting into my point. So we get a gut instinct, and then the opposites in my mind is patience. So we're talking about, life lessons or lessons that we learn from the universe, karmic lessons. I'll say for most of my life, I didn't learn much or learn any of that. Why? Because I'm autonomous, I'm self-driven. I don't look at others about how I should be behaving. I'm going and doing and looking behind after. So I don't really spend too much time to say, well, what should I be doing? Let me take a moment. Patience. And so that's the point of this. This is intuition versus patience. So, as of recent, even in the last year, have I had any opportunities to perceive anything that I would call a complex? I'm 38, so I say 37, 38 years, I didn't learn any karmic lessons because I had no patience. Operating honestly, really good. And, I don't know where you guys with my karmic lessons I've learned over the last year, but I've taken some time to be able to say, let's take a moment and we're going to see what feels right and follow intuition. So normally I operate with autonomy, but as of late, when I say let's not follow gut instinct, let's take a moment and be perceptive and not be so impulsive or compulsive, and take a look around and see what feels right based on what the universe is telling you.
yes.
And so it's an interesting thing to, to be intuitive is to trust yourself and learn it. But if you trust yourself too much, then you don't trust the universe enough. And then, but if you're patient, then you have all the time in the world to study the universe and listen to the universe. But then how much are you learning to listen to yourself? So the question I would have is, or the statement, not really a question, is the dichotomy between intuition and patience.
And that is the thing. Okay, I don't know quite how to sum up everything that you just said about being things that you're open to and things that you're not open to. And because you have learned and you've been very successful in your way of doing things your way and such, and yet didn't have experiences with these big epiphanies and these events happening in your life until like the last year because and you've opened up. And I loved the way you did that. You even used your arms and you opened up. You showed us very clearly what you were doing. It's getting into that flow state. And the dichotomies are there. That's what we have here. We have left and right, we have hot and cold, we've got dark and light, etc., etc., etc. We live in a world of dichotomies, and it's fascinating and interesting and intriguing and in the background and things we don't notice and don't care about, and all of these things happening around us, and we deal with these dichotomies. Standing here, I am saying don't go purely with the intuitive side. Don't go purely with the hypnotic side. Blend them. Bring in that alliance. Bring in that communication and that flow. And it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean okay, intuition, turn on. Yeah. Okay, where's my insight? I'm waiting. I'm waiting. It doesn't quite work that way, but being open to hearing and perceiving those signals that come. Now, the thing is, we got a big, busy world. We do. We know it's a big, busy world, and things happen. And there's crappy things that happen left and right, and situations where we could have been seriously injured, and something where that person could have said something to me, and this happened at work, and all of these things that we learned to to mute parts of ourselves. We mute ourselves. Even hurts my throat just saying that. But we mute ourselves. We dampen our spirit. It's even an expression that, I've heard many times before, and it just went bing in my head. Oh my God, we really do dampen our spirit. And we do things to protect ourselves, or that part of us that's always watching and taking care of us. You can come back from the back of the room now. That part of us, which I love dearly because it protects me and it watches over me, but it is not in charge of my life. I'm in charge. I am, the words again, I am in charge of my life. I am that part, that bigger part of you, the part that drives you in a particular direction, that makes you think of something and causes you to hesitate at just that right moment, so that something doesn't happen. And what are the odds of that kind of thing happening, that you're there and you would have been, but you're not? That sounds like a little bit of a dichotomy in itself, doesn't it? Our dichotomies are there, and we have that spectrum. A great way to learn about that, and a very deep topic and a lot to chew on, is hermetics. Yes, we are pretty much out of time here. Hermetics is a great way to learn about those different principles, and there's lots of ways to learn about that. Hermetics is, it traces back to Hermes, Hermes was a god, but Hermes was also a man, and Egypt, and it's just some very old training, and it just makes a whole lot of sense and answers a lot of questions. But the law of polarity, temperature, hot and cold, they're still on the same spectrum. You balance things out. You don't deal with stuff that's super hot. You don't deal with stuff that's super cold. Both of those would be potentially harmful to you. You stay in that state of where you can handle it, where it's functional, where it's reasonable, where it can support you. And I could go on for hours about hermetic. That would be a good topic in itself, wouldn't it? So,
We do have someone online today. It is Steve G. And so, Steve, are you able to be on camera and introduce yourself? Would you like to do that? We're just wondering. Excellent.
he may still be in that trance.
Yes. And okay,
I say that with all grace and respect.
we'll keep the Zoom going to see if Steve wants to connect with the
And
group.
if you can and you would like to, you're welcome to. But I'll officially say thank you so much.
You're
It
welcome.
was, wonderful having you share your wisdom and all of your knowledge with us. And we do have a couple minutes if anybody else has more questions here in the room. But just want to say thank you all for being here today. And for those of you who are not yet a member of NGHWA, you do not have to be a member of the Greater National Guild of Hypnotists to be a member of NGHWA. Those are separate. You can do both if you'd like, but it's $50 a year to be a member of NGHWA. You can go to our website. We have a QR code. We'll make sure it's here in the replay under the video too, as well as in our newsletters. It's ngh-wa.org. And Danny has little QR codes for everybody in the room who would like one. We would love for you to join us, whether you are practicing or you're an enthusiast. So all are welcome. So thank you all so much for being here today with us, and we will see you next month. Second Saturday, keep an eye on Meetup and the newsletter. We're going to be right here in Montlake Terrace again, 10 to noon. So we will see you in April. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much. Coming in. Okay.